We have to retrieve historical information to understand the present, starting with the first people to inhabit this land, or rather who are its people. We refer here to the land of Palestine, which was known in the past as the land of Canaan. What is the story of this land? What are the origins of its name? Who was the first to inhabit it and continue in it? Is it really an Arab land? Let us tell the exciting story of one of the most controversial areas on earth, from a long time ago until today, according to what is stated in most historical records and documented books related to the Abrahamic religions, including our Islamic religion. Here is the comprehensive story. The land of Canaan is a historical region in the ancient Near East, and includes what is known today as Palestine and Lebanon, in addition to the western parts of Jordan and Syria. This region was a fertile region with a moderate climate that helped in its fertility, which made it the focus of attention of those aspiring to settle in it. If you now know some details about the land whose story we will tell today, let us go back in history to the time of the Great Flood, the time of the prophet Noah, peace be upon him. And we will discover first how its name was associated with the Canaanites. The flood began and 3 of the sons of the prophet Noah, peace be upon him, came out on the famous ship, Shem, Ham and Japheth. The 4th son, according to historians, who is called Yam or Canaan, was the prodigal son who refused to go out with his father on the ship and drowned in this flood. After the ship landed, as is known to most historians, on Mount Judy, the sons of the prophet Noah spread across the earth, where Shem moved to the Arabian Peninsula, while Ham chose North Africa, while Japheth headed towards what was known as the land of the Romans or what is known today as Europe. What concerns us here are the people of Shem who inhabited the Arabian Peninsula, and some of them migrated to the land of Canaan or Palestine today and lived and spread there and called it the land of Canaan, and it remained so until the events that changed its name began. The Canaanites built their civilization and left great architectural monuments that were written in the Canaanite language from which the Hebrew and Phoenician languages emanated, as the clay manuscripts prove that the civilization extended from Palestine and Lebanon to the regions of Syria. So let's continue the story. Events began to unfold on this land, and in the late 12th century BC, a series of invasions by Kurdish tribes began on the land of Canaan. These tribes were trying to invade Egypt across the seas coming from Greece and neighboring regions, but they could not. The Egyptians called them the Sea Peoples, which is known in Greek or Latin as Plast or Bausto. Because of the failure of their invasions of Egypt, they decided to change their destination to the land of Canaan. Indeed, a series of invasions began until they settled on the shores of Jaffa and Gaza, so that region was called Palestine after the name of the Kuwaiti tribe Balsto, which means in Greek, those coming from the seas. It was only a matter of time before this new group merged with the Canaanites, the original inhabitants of the country, and the name Palestine was given to all the coastal and inland lands inhabited by the Canaanites. Over time, the Arab Canaanite element prevailed, and the inhabitants of the country all became Arab Canaanites again, but this was not the only event. Another event of no less importance is the arrival of the first prophet to Palestine, the prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, who migrated to the land of Canaan from the town of Ur in Iraq, fleeing the brutality of the infidels in Palestine. Religion or land. Canaan went on his journey and his famous story that we all know to Egypt, then to the land of Canaan again, to the Arabian Peninsula, then again to the land of Canaan, where he had Isaac from his first wife Sarah. Of course, those who do not know the details of this story may tell it in future episodes. If Abraham, peace be upon him, had his son Isaac from Sarah in the land of Canaan, that is, Palestine. Rabbi Isaac in turn gave birth to the prophet Jacob, peace be upon him, who is called Israel, and the ancient children of Israel are attributed to him. If in the year 1751 BC, the year in which Jacob, peace be upon him, was born according to historians, here was the beginning of the children of Israel. Years pass and Jacob is blessed with 12 sons, among them a new prophet from the lineage of Abraham, namely Joseph the Truthful, peace be upon him. After the famous story that happened with the prophet Joseph and his brothers, which a surah was dedicated to, it became a rare case in the Holy Quran in which an entire surah was dedicated to narrating the story of a prophet, which led the prophet Joseph to become a governor in Egypt. The situation led the prophet Jacob to migrate to Egypt with his sons to his son Joseph after he suffered from a shortage of wheat and provisions in Palestine. So Joseph left them in Egypt after he forgave his brothers who had betrayed him and abandoned him in the past, and as the years passed the situation remained the same. The lineage of the children of Israel began to grow little by little, and they stayed in Egypt for this entire period until the era of the prophet Moses, peace be upon him. Here was another pivotal event, the exodus of Moses and the children of Israel from Egypt. This happened during the time of Ramses II, and in other accounts during the time of Merneptah, after the prophet Moses, peace be upon him. And those who believed with him from the children of Israel were subjected to persecution that forced them to leave for Palestine again. But reaching the land of Canaan was not easy this time, as they entered a maze that made them stay in the desert known today as the Sinai Desert for about 40 years before they were able to enter Palestine after the death of the prophet Moses, peace be upon him. Then came Joshua ben Nun, who led the children of Israel to Palestine and crossed with them to Jericho. Here, Palestine was governed by what is known as the Era of Justice, which lasted for about a century and a half, during which 12 judges ruled. Then Saul ruled Palestine, and after that came the era of kings, among whom was our master David. Around the year 1400 BC, David, peace be upon him, succeeded in uniting the children of Israel again and put an end to the differences and wars that were between them, and he was able to defeat the Japanese and establish the first kingdom of Israel in part of the land of the Arab Canaanites or Palestine. The situation remained the same even during the reign of Solomon, son of David, peace be upon them. But after the death of our master Solomon, the disputes between the Jews returned and the kingdom was divided against itself, as the kingdom of Judah was established in Jerusalem and the kingdom of Israel in Samaria. So wars began between the two kingdoms, and each sought help from external forces, some of whom sought help from the kings of Egypt while the other sought help from the Husks. The king of Egypt, Shishon, took advantage of the disputes between the kingdom of Israel and Judah, and attacked the latter and occupied it, so that it became subject to the Egyptian state from then on. The Assyrians followed suit, so they attacked the kingdoms of Israel and Judah, occupied them and imposed tribute on them. Here was the suffering of the inhabitants of the kingdom of Israel, as most of its inhabitants were taken captive to Iraq after they tried to rebel against the Assyrians. As for the kingdom of Judah, which was still standing, it ended after the attack launched by Nebuchadnezzar the Chaldean on Palestine approximately in the year 597 BC, according to most historians, after which he was able to seize Jerusalem, the capital of Judah, and took its king, his family and most of its leaders captive to Iraq, and established a new king in Jerusalem. During that period, the remnants of the Jews tried to rebel against the authority of Babylon in Palestine, so Nebuchadnezzar invaded it again. And this time he completely destroyed Jerusalem and erased all traces of the children of Israel residing on that land. And Palestine returned to being an Arab Canaanite receiving Arab migrations from Syria and the Arabian Peninsula. And thus a state was formed. The Jews disappeared in Palestine after living for only 4 centuries, during which the prophets sent to the children of Israel tried to build a kingdom for themselves in a part of the land inhabited mainly by the Arab Canaanites. They let the prophets down and let themselves down, and the Arab people of the land of Canaan who migrated from the Arabian Peninsula remained the inhabitants of this land, the land of Palestine. Since then and for about 2,000 years, history has not mentioned that a state or kingdom for the children of Israel was established during all that period and the events, invasions and wars that it witnessed, the goal of which was always to control this land, and the situation continued as it was during that era and until the recent past, which brought major international alliances and agreements that led to what it is today. The conclusion in this episode is simple. What I presented to you is the timeline and events related to this land. The land of Canaan or Palestine. You and I are not historians, but this story is what most historians agreed upon, and it is true and carries common points in all the Abrahamic religions and even in the Torah and the ancient books. The question that has always puzzled you may be, is this land really Arab? Did the Arabs inhabit it before others? And who stayed there? Are they Arabs too? This is the story of the land that I presented to you from their masks. You have obtained the historical answer to your questions, which confirms the Arab identity of the land of Palestine and its ownership. And you, my friends, are completely free to investigate and research because, as I said in the introduction, history is a lesson for you.